Okay, so you're starting to hear a banging noise in the back of your Caravan, Grand Caravan, Town and Country. There are occasions where I've found that the bolts holding the shock absorber have come loose, but most of the times the problem is right here. This is called your shackle for your leaf spring, and these bushings start breaking apart, deteriorate, and you have to replace them. And in my case, the hanger has a bushing up there. I've never had to replace that before, but this time both sides are really bad, so I had to buy both parts. And let me show you what they are. Okay, now here's what I bought. This is the hanger. You can't buy just the bushings for the hanger. You have to buy the whole unit. These are different between the stow and go models and the model like mine, which is not stow and go. This one is readily available. The one with stow and go, you may have to go to the dealer for. The Shackle on Rock Auto is where I bought all these parts. Was listed as without stow and go, but I've had both models of vehicle and this looks exactly the same. Now you can just buy just these bushings if you want, but the price of two of these bushings, and I'm not sure, they've always listed them as each. Now each may mean a pair, I don't know, and if you know the answer to that, please chime in below, share your knowledge with everybody. But if they were just eaches, so you had to buy two of them, it's roughly the same price as the whole shackle, and there's one other component within the shackle that you wouldn't get just buying the bushings. And that is this part right here. This tube is what's inside the bushings, inside here. So when you tighten this down, you're actually going to tighten down onto this piece of pipe. You're not tightening down onto the bushings. And that puts the bushings at the correct compression for the application. Now, my van has 75,000 miles on it, so I don't know if I will see any wear on this, but if let's say you have 175,000 miles, 200,000 miles and you're replacing these, well, this pipe may have actually worn down shorter than it should be. So I recommend that if you're replacing this, just spend the extra $1, get the whole shackle. I'm also going to replace, that is called the track bar, and that runs above the axle. And only reason why, mine looks fine, but I figure since there's rubber parts and bushings involved, I'll replace it. Besides, it's $18. Didn't make my shipping go up at all, so I splurged on that. Okay, so get your van up in the air, jack up the wheels, the rear of the van, and you're going to need to get the van up on the jack stands, and the frame is pretty distant, so I had to use cinder blocks along with that. And like I said, chock both sides of your wheels. I put the wheels underneath the van just as a safety precaution. Now as an option, what I'm doing is Phillips head screws, take these out, and a Phillips head screw hidden over here, take that out, and that will allow you to free up the bumper to give you a little more room to get this shackle out of here. Whether you're replacing this and this or just this, either way, the hanger has to come out because this will not come out otherwise. One side, the bolt is welded onto the end plate of the shackle, so it has to be dropped down, swung forward, and slid out to the side, and that's where having a little extra room here comes in handy. So after you get the wheels off, okay, after the wheels are off, jack up the axle, and then undo the top bolts on your shock absorbers. I'm going to try to do this with leaving the track bar in place. There's the track bar. Your vehicle may also have sway bar, which would be bolted onto this axle and then mounted up here with links. You're going to have to undo that also. Probably would be easiest just to do the two bolts on the axle on each side and let it hang loose like that. And then after that, we're going to have to move on to breaking these loose. Okay, they're 15mm bolts all the way around. These are 15s. These are 15s. Anytime you have any exposed threads, I've already done this, is wire brush the threads off real good, and then spray it with penetrating oil, and then give it time to sit. Actually, for me, it was like 1 or 2 hours. Spray it again, and then spray it a third time, and then start doing your work, and it should break free for you. This one up here is a little tough. I have a pass-through socket set that I used on there just to speed it up, but when I had to break it free, I just used a regular old wrench and was able to break it free. Okay, remember, you want to start with your axle jacked up a little bit, not just the jack under it, lift it up a few inches. And then now I'm going to remove these bolts and both nuts on the shackle, and then do that on both sides. Then lower it down. If you try just to do one side, or especially if you try to have one side of the car jacked up, this spring is going to fight you. It's not going to drop. So I'm hoping that I can get it to drop without removing the track bar, because I want to leave that on just for a little extra support. Okay, I've lowered it down, and then you pull down on the spring a little bit, and that shackle will come free. Now, you want to go down as little as possible, because the other end of the spring, it fits through a bushing, and that bushing is flexed right now. And you don't want to put too much stress on that and tear it, especially if it's a 15-year-old bushing like that one is. So, but since it's cantilevering down that end, you'll get much more movement down this end than you will down at the bushing end, so it should be okay. Okay, on the driver's side, this one was the culprit. You can see where it's worn all the way through down to the, that would have been the inside of the leaf spring. And also you can see on here where it was banging and rubbing against the side of the leaf spring. The pipe that goes down the middle is a hair shorter. Whether that is from wear and tear, I don't know, but I'm glad I have a new one. And the hanger actually really isn't bad at all. It's probably, most of this is exterior superficial. It's rubber's starting to deteriorate there a bit, but it's not terrible. No, but I got the new ones, so I'll put them on anyway. Okay, as soon as I got the shackles out of the way, I jacked the springs back up again, and then started with a screwdriver and a pair of pliers pulling out the old bushings. Then I went through with a wire brush, cleaned out the inside, and then whatever zero residue cleaner you have, spray it out on the inside. And then you're ready to put the new assembly back on. One thing I don't like about these Dorman bushings, they're awfully loose in there, so hopefully once it's tightened down, it'll squeeze that together in there and fatten that up. But I was surprised. One thing you don't want to use is any type of lubricant on any of these bushings. Bushings are meant to flex, they're not meant to spin. If they spin, they're just going to wear out on you. And I sure as hell hope that these don't spin. Okay, now I got this on here loose, just hand threaded. These nuts on these are stamped nuts, so they'll only go on so far, and they're, you know, that stamped nuts are designed to grab the bolts so they won't back out. And then I just lower the axle just enough so that I can pull down on the spring, swing the assembly forward to get it into place. Okay, and you're going to want to undo the track bar on one end. Otherwise, as the vehicle is raised up, it's going to pull the axle to one side, and you won't be able to get the holes lined up. Okay, everything's in place. Got the new track bar put in. And now I know what you're wondering. What's with the blue tape? And that's something that I do just for my own benefit. The blue tape does not come off until the adjacent bolts to that tape have been torqued down to their specification. And in this case, according to what I've read, all bolts are 45 foot-pounds which you probably noticed when you took these out. These are really not in there real tight. They almost feel like they're hand tight. They came right out no problem. I reused the old bolts just because the Dorman bolts were flange bolts and they had a 14mm head on them, whereas I just stuck with the originals with the 15mm socket, and they have that washer underneath there. They're in good shape. So and now next step will be you don't want to tighten any of these bolts that have bushings in them while the vehicle's up in the air. You tighten them down only when all four wheels are on level ground in a neutral position. If you tighten them down, a bushing down while it's jacked up in the air, I've seen this happen with shock absorbers or even the nut come undone, it's not in a neutral position when you put it down. So it's, you'll figure if you have it jacked up, it's here, then you put the vehicle down and it twists that bushing that far, and then you hit a bump and it twists it that much farther, you're going to tear this bushing up. So by having it in a neutral position, it can flex this way and flex the other way, both ways, and always return to neutral. So you don't want to have it basically under tension once you lower the car down. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll go get my bumper screwed back into place, get the wheels on the car, drive to a level part of my driveway, just shimmy underneath the vehicle and tighten everything down. Right now they're just basically just barely snugged up. I just have them tightened up so that the surfaces are touching, and that's it. Oh yeah, and torque specifications, 45 foot-pounds for those. Those are already tightened to spec. Once I lower the vehicles, 45. Same on the other side, but the track bar is 70 foot-pounds. 70 foot-pounds, and that's a 18mm socket for those. Okay, all done. These are tightened to torque. This bolt nut up here, to use a torque wrench, I had to use a little claw foot wrench onto the torque wrench. To compensate for the extra distance, I actually took it down by 5 foot-pounds, and even at that, these cheap Dorman nuts started stripping out with this claw foot, probably because it wasn't a hex socket over there, plus I guess it's fairly soft metal. And the bugger was the track bar. That one was difficult, just because trying to crawl under here, there's no room to work on either. So in the end, what I had to do was I had to bang them down with the impact wrench, and then jack the van up, and they stayed in place because they, you know, not getting banged around through potholes or whatever. And that gave me enough room to take the torque wrench and torque it to 70 foot-pounds, but 70 foot-pounds seems really tight. I was really expecting it to strip out or snap or something, but I managed to get it right to 70 foot-pounds. And now I'll take it out for a test drive, but everything should be good. It all looks good. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it helpful. Please, if you liked it, share, like, subscribe. And I look forward to making more videos that you find helpful. Thank you.